Hello, welcome to the Alone Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Alone. In this episode, I don't have any regulars because, well, this time I actually don't feel like it. Anyway, our guest is from Toronto, Canada. She's an author, and wow, there's a lot of things to go into. But we'll get right into that because, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Jazz Alujla.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Anytime. So, how's life?
Oh, life is good. It's busy, very busy at the moment. But otherwise, yeah, I would say it's overall just generally good.
Okay, very good. And have you been up to much recently?
Well, I guess I'm like, sure. Where do I start? Well, I work full time. I have a full time career in the corporate world. I work in HR in Canada, and I also have a second career, which is my writing life, my writing career. And so I am pretty much, I'm going to say, on the cusp of launching my debut novel, Next to Twin, and it's launching, or my official update is May 16th, 2023. And so doing I'm going to say a lot of interviews and podcasts like yours, just to get the word out on the new book.
Hmm. Oh, interesting. Fabulous strategy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, what encouraged you to become an author?
Well, I think I don't know if it so much has, encouraged me, but I guess just to back up a little bit. So I was born in India, and I migrated to Canada when I was fairly young. I was about two, and my parents were hardworking immigrants, and I found sometimes I had a lot of time to myself as they were busy working. And so as a child, I grew up just loving reading, uh, you know, and I found losing myself in books was a way for me to pass my time. And I also felt that it probably super sparked my passion for creativity and storytelling at a very young age. And when I was 8, I wrote or created a book, and it was basically for an elementary school project. And the book won a prize, and that prize was a seat on a young writers conference. Yeah, and so that sort of started my what I call today my second career. Um, and really, I think I knew at a young age I wanted to be a writer. From there, when I was in high school, I excelled in the English courses and the creative writing courses, and I was even accepted to my dream university for journalism. But I did not end up attending, the university, as my parents, who were, funding my education at the time, really wanted me to obtain a degree in something that they felt was a little bit more practical and something that would land me a job eventually, and a job where I didn't have to worry about money. And so, under their advisement, I did not go to my dream university and ended up going to another university, a University of Toronto, and I studied economics and business. And but I still squeezed in every now and then every English literature and creative writing elective that I could manage. And really, just from there, after university, although I loved writing, it was always a passion. It was always something, that I think I had an aptitude for. Um, but it probably most of my life took a back seat as as I excelled in my professional career. And, long story short, I started writing this novel about 5 years ago, and it was actually sparked from being promoted in my day job. And normally when I was promoted at work, I would buy myself a congratulatory gift, like a designer purse. And I decided, at this time that I wanted to gift myself an experience. And so that experience was, what I felt was, right for me at the time. And it was basically a 1 week writing retreat in Tuscany, Italy. And as part of the retreats package, the organizer, Vanessa Carnval, she's like this Australian author. And so, as part of the package, she said she would provide feedback on the first 10 pages of any work in progress that the attendee wanted. And so that essentially, began my first book baby, Next to Twin.
Oh, interesting. That is quite the story.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And not going to your dream university doing journalism, have you ever still thought about still wanting to do that, even if you were financially stable and you do have the passion for it, in a sense?
Yeah, I still do. I did spend, I'm gonna say a fair bit of time doing the, what if I had gone to the university, what would my life have been like? And, eventually, and I'll be honest, probably held a lot of resentment for my parents who had, encouraged me one way. And, although I went that way, I still felt like, I think it's, the road untraveled sometimes always looks as exciting or, unexplored. So therefore it feels appealing. And so, yeah, if I, I always say jokingly and maybe not jokingly, if I had probably, if I had one moment, if I had one decision or one moment to relive and make a different decision, that would probably be my one moment for life. But I feel very grateful in general and at the moment because I did, yeah, I took probably the long way the long way around, but I still eventually, ended up on and pursuing it. And when I was younger, actually always had this goal, and it still felt like, okay, even though I'm not in journalism and I'm not actively in my career isn't to write, that doesn't mean I can't still pursue it. And I always had this goal, like, when I thought, okay, when I'm 25, I'm going to write my first book. And then, when that didn't happen, then I was like, okay, when I'm 30, I'm going to write my first book. And then 35. And I think after like 40 and not having met that goal yet, I just said, you know what, I'm just going to backburn it or put it on the back burner. And if it's meant to be, it will be. And it's one of those things that it still, was still always there. And I guess, when I was actually ready to do it, because it was a huge commitment huge commitment to write a book. And I, learned a lot about myself and my own process through writing the book.
That's fantastic. So, what was life for you growing up?
For me, well, it was. Oh, how do I say this? It was difficult. Being the child of immigrant parents, they were, my parents worked a lot. My dad was a taxi cab driver. My mom worked in a factory, in a clothing factory, very, very long hours. And so, with me and my siblings, we we managed, but it also felt like, especially for me, because I was the oldest, I was the oldest girl, and the middle child. So I felt a little like I had to, be the parent in a way and had to be the responsible one in many respects. So it was, it was challenging at times, and it wasn't always great. Just in terms of, my parents, obviously their first goal was, to put a roof over their children's heads and make sure they were clothed and fed. And so, um, the basic necessities of life. And and so there really wasn't a lot of room or extra money, for, things like traveling or, the luxuries in life. And so I think, that probably had a adverse sort of impact on me, or had an impact on me in the respect that, when I and maybe in a way it maybe also veered me away from having a life of, or pursuing a life of creativity earlier on in my life, because I wanted to ensure that, I had a stable career and a stable life, in terms of money. And yeah, and so when I could afford the things that I probably couldn't afford, obviously my parents couldn't afford for us when I was a child, it felt good that I could give myself these things.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from. So, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Hmm. And would I have to live there forever, or would I would I be able to travel to other places?
Well, you could live in whatever place for as long as you want and then hop
Hmm.
over whenever you feel like it.
Yeah. Well, if I could, and money was not an object, I probably would have a few different places, that I would call home. Definitely, I think one would be perhaps in Paris somewhere, maybe an apartment in Paris. I would love to have a villa in Italy. Uh, yeah, and probably those are my sort of two top places to live. Or if I'm going to add a somewhere remote, where it's, a woodsy environment, maybe a cabin in the woods, that I could focus on writing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, would you rather have an agility of a cat or be able to breathe underwater?
Oh, that's interesting. Um, I definitely would say I'd like to breathe underwater, because for some reason I am not a good swimmer. I tried swimming when I was very, very young, and I just never got the hang of it. And then when I was a little bit older, I tried to get swimming lessons. And so, yeah, I'm totally, um, cannot swim. And so, if I did fall into a large body of water, I would hope that breathing underwater would help and save my life.
Okay, cool, cool. If you had a theme song for every time you enter the room, what would it sound like?
Yeah, theme song. Every time I enter the room. All right. Well, one of my favorite songs, and probably, yeah, I would choose this one, is Cyndi Lauper's "Girls Just Want to Have Fun." I think, I loved the song when I was a kid, and I'd always sing it. And I know when my daughter was born and she was young, I'd always like play it, and we danced around. And so, yeah, it would probably be that song.
Hmm, sweet. How did you spend your last birthday?
My last birthday, well, my last birthday was a milestone. And I'm not shy about sharing my birthday or my age. I know many women are, but I turned 50 last year October, and actually I'm born on a Friday, so my birthday's October the 13th, and so my favorite and my lucky numbers are 13th. And yeah, and so because it was a milestone, we actually went up to so I live in Toronto, Canada, and we have the CN Tower up here in Toronto. And so you can actually, they have a restaurant on the top of the tower, and that is where I spent my birthday. I invited, I think, 10 of my dear friends, and my family, of course, and we that is how we rang in my birthday.
Hmm, that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Welcome. If you opened a business, what kind of business would it be?
Interesting. Well, it's interesting because it would probably be a cafe. Well, if money actually, forget the cafe, it'd probably be a bar, or a cafe bar, somewhere where, uh, you know, it would just, yeah, somewhere that is in a high traffic area zone where a lot of people are sort of coming and going, and maybe, a bar or a little pub in the airport or in a train station would probably be my first venture.
Interesting. That'll be a good start.
Yeah, yeah. In my book, Next to Twin, one of my twins actually has it's a cafe. It's like an artist cafe, and it's introduced very early in the book, and it's a place for artists and writers to go to, and that was my character's sort of dream 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 job or dream business that she wanted. And so I probably you know have been able to live a little bit of my dream through my characters.
Hmm. Okay. What natural landmark would you like to see someday?
Natural landmark, that's interesting. Oh wow, I feel like, oh no. Oh, I'm silent because I'm thinking. I'm thinking, where have I been and where would I like to go? Well, it's interesting because I hadn't when I went to Paris maybe about 10 years ago. I was in the city for just a day, and I did go to the Eiffel Tower, but I didn't go all the way up. Like I didn't go I didn't enter the building. I didn't go to the top of the Eiffel Tower. So I would say that, yeah, I would probably pick the Eiffel Tower. I think that's considered a landmark, right?
Yeah, it is a landmark, and a
Yeah.
very famous one for that matter.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like, what other landmarks are there? I'm like, what are my options?
Well, it only depends what you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you rather be really hot or really cold?
Uh, I would, oh, I don't know. Well, I would say hot because when I was a child, I actually grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So that's one of the central provinces in Canada. And it was very cold. And yeah, it was very cold. So I feel like I've lived the very, very cold life. And so I wouldn't mind being hot.
Okay, I can see that. Would you rather be teleported permanently 500 years to the future or 500 years to the past?
Hmm. I would say the future because I feel like we could teleport ourselves into the past at any time by reading books or literature. Um, but the future is very, very unknown, and chances are that I will not be living for another 500 years. So if I could fast forward to that time, I think that's definitely would I, what I would choose, and it'd be interesting to see what the world would look like.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. What do you think the world might look like in 500 years?
Well, to be honest, it's hard to tell exactly, but there are like some estimations to somewhat get a perfect, a clear-ish vision. Like, well, technology would obviously advance. There'll be tons of variety of accessibility. A lot of people would certainly be living in cities rather than rural areas. And of course, everything is either going to be electrified, hy hydro powered, or, well, anything that's using renewable energy. Certainly
Hmm.
by that time.
Hmm.
That's just my vision for the future. Like,
Yeah.
it's a long way, but I'm pretty sure that there'll be some sort of advancements until between now until the next 500 years.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be.
Oh, yes. If you had to pick any character in a book, movie, or TV show, who is most similar to you?
Oh gosh, wow. I don't know. I don't know. Can I? My, I'm thinking similar to me. I don't know. Can I do a pass on that question? Maybe we come back to it. I'm like,
Yeah,
I can.
yeah, we could
Well,
do.
actually, so you said TV show, so it's interesting. So um, on Friends, Monica, who, if I remember correctly, was a clean freak, and she had like OCD clean freakness, and so yeah, I'd probably say that is me, or was me in my young in uh, so yeah. Now I'd probably say Monica from Friends.
Yeah, yeah, that makes. I guess that makes sense. Which recent news story have you found most interesting?
Oh, news story. Okay, well, I'll be honest, I haven't read the news lately. Uh, um, and when I say lately, in the last couple of days. But I guess the big one is probably quite interesting was, Elon Musk's uh, takeover and ownership of Twitter. I know that that happened, a few months ago, last year in November-ish, and it was interesting because, I'm a avid Twitter user. I've been using, Twitter for my author profile since, since July of 2021 when when I knew that my book was being published, and I wanted to start creating a platform for Next of Twin. And I, you know, that was also a way to get more involved in the writing community and the poetry community, and just participate in that way as well. And so over the last, I'm going to say, a year and a half, almost 2 years that I've been with my author account on Twitter, I have pretty much written like maybe one or two poems a day, and so really have gathered a lot of poetry, and probably worth probably like two books worth of poetry on Twitter. And so when Elon had taken Twitter over, and there was a question around if Twitter was even going to survive or still what would happen with the platform. I think there were a lot of us who were like, okay, we should probably, you know, cut and paste or get our poetry off Twitter, or at least have a backup of it. So yeah, I found that overall story quite interesting, and how he went in and let go of a lot of staff, and then also just like you know the changes he's made, and how the platform has been since then. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, the development has certainly been interesting in the last few months, and wow, it's been quite a ride, and I'm excited to see what's yet to come.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's interesting because I do feel, maybe not so much now, but I noticed like in January, just every day when I would go on Twitter, I would notice little tweaks and little changes here and there, and every day it was something new. Just little things that probably people, or people may not notice. But just little things in terms of, like, I think the most recent change I noticed was the font of your tweets. It seemed like it was, you know, the the actual words or the lettering was a little bit sharper and bolder than it had been in the past. Which, for me, um, I feel as I'm getting older, my eyesight isn't as great, and so staring at my phone all the time seem like it. So for me, the being able to, or having the tweets a little bit bolded actually is an upgrade for me. So I like that one, but there were probably other ones where it was like, oh, I'm not sure what's driving this change. So it's interesting. I would love to be. I would love to be I don't know, a fly on the Twitter walls, just to see what happens happens inside that company. I think that would be very interesting.
Okay. If magic was real, what would be the first spell you want to learn?
Sorry, question: if magic was real.
Yeah, if magic was real, what spell would you try to learn first?
Oh, what spell? Probably a spell, so everybody would buy my book, maybe. Maybe that would be a really good, spell to have.
Yeah,
But
that'll get sales up.
yeah, I'm like, I think I'll go with the selfish, option. I'm like, you know, you could use that spell, like, as many ways, and, to, create love in the world and whatnot. But yeah, Jazz will create a spell, so you'll buy her book.
Yeah. Would you ever try space tourism?
Space tourism.
Yeah,
Yeah, I, yeah, I can't wait to go to the moon. I seriously hope that it is affordable in my lifetime. And
yeah,
yeah, I definitely would maybe go to the moon. Yeah, I felt we had a couple of people go to the moon recently, didn't we? Was it last year or the year before? I feel like the COVID years really sort of made time be like you know, made me feel, at least the COVID years made me feel like I was in a time warp. And sometimes I'm like, what year did that happen? So I feel like, there were a couple of people that went to the moon and explored the whole moon tourism, or what you called it, space tourism. Um, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And that is all we have for this episode. It was great having you here, Jazz, talking about your books, your life growing up, immigrating to Canada, and wow, it's been quite a conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I would just like to maybe put in a quick plug for Next of Twin. If you're interested and you like engaging reads with strong female characters and a fast-paced plot, I would encourage you to pre-order your copy on Amazon.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And until next time, stay tuned for more.